Yeah, to have a side conversation.
What's this now? What's that on?
Now it's on.
Okay.
Lights on.
Okay, good evening, you all. I want to call to order the Fair Rent Commission hearing. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. It's okay, a roll call of those present.
Geraldine Yo.
Joe Finnegan.
Lori Bosky.
Jeff Thoman. We have Marty Stiglich, Commissioner, is absent today. I still want to go with regard to the agenda, or before we begin, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. That's Mr. Finnegan, if you could lead us.
I'll let you do it.
Okay, all right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Yep. Next agenda item is approval of minutes from the November 14th, 2022 meeting of the Fair Rent Commission. Commissioners, all commissioners that are here today were present at such meeting. I ask if they've had a copy of it, the draft copy of such minutes, reviewed it, and I'd entertain a motion.
I motion we accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. So approved.
Moving on.
Okay. Moving on, we have a agenda item presentation by Sherwood Inspection Services. Do anybody here to be heard? Yes. If you could ask you to come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Brad Peters. I'm with Sherwood Inspection Services. I'm here to go through quickly just what we did for the mold inspections. We did the mold inspections at the concierge apartments down the street. We were contacted by the town of Rocky Hill to perform some mold inspections. We were brought in to do an evaluation and then run some air sampling, surface and air samples. I'm the inspector that went in and did it. I met with Kelly Ayala from the town of Rocky Hill. We went down to the individual units that were in question. Kelly had made contact with everybody. We were allowed in, and I proceeded to do my visual walkthrough and proceeded to do some sampling, air samples, surface samples if needed, obtained the results, and submitted my reports to the town of Rocky Hill through Kelly. And the 4 units that I did inspect and got the results for were elevated for mold. And part of my report was a remediation plan by a professional mold remediation company to go in and clean up the property professionally, correctly. So the reports that you have in front of you, I don't know if Kelly's given those to you, but these are the results of those are the mold reports that contain the individual reports of each individual unit. And again, they were all elevated. So I don't know if you have any questions on that. Is that the extent you want me to go through? Is there any questions on the level of the elevations or certain remediation contractors? I don't know where it stands now. This was all given to the town of Rocky Hill.
If you could briefly explain to us the levels of mold that you found and what the threshold levels are.
Sure.
By statute.
Okay. When we go in to do a mold inspection, we do, for an example, a mold air sample. Mold is in the air that we breathe every day. There's many different types of mold. There's 100,000 different types of mold in the air that we breathe. They're not all bad, but there are certain ones that, if they're inside and elevated, are harmful to humans. And those are the ones that we test for, and we have our microbial lab submitting us the results for. One of those, we call those the 20 to 25 of them that we have our microbial lab looking for. We call them marker spores. One of those is called Aspergillus penicillium. It's a very common mold spore outside, and it's a very common mold spore inside. We're breathing it right now as we speak. But when it's elevated inside, it's harmful to humans. Mold spores are called mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are in the air that we breathe. Our body naturally flushes out mycotoxins. part of our, much like a kidney or a spleen, it gets rid of the bad stuff. But if you live in an environment that has elevated mold, your body can't flush out the mycotoxins fast enough. And so those mycotoxins build up in your body, start affecting your organs, and creating all kinds of health effects, health issues for the people and animals that are in that environment. That's why it's deemed a health risk. It needs to be remediated. So when we do when I go into an example, when I go to a site, I will do a control sample. I take one air sample outside, and we measure what the levels are outside for those 20-25 marker spores. And then we come inside, and I look through my visual, and if I see an area of concern, I'll do an air sample, and then we can measure the results, and we see if it's the difference, and if it's elevated or not. So what we want is normal, is what we're breathing outside. If it's elevated inside, that's what's called out in the reports.
And we've received your reports in connection with residents of Concierge, in particular, tenant by the name Ms. Wong, Ms. Biba, Contreras, and Jones. And do you ever, those are the reports that you submitted to the town?
That's correct. I know more as Unit A417, A101, A314, and B605.
Okay. And in those cases, based on your report, what was your conclusion?
That they were all elevated for mold, different levels, but they were elevated for mold and needed to be remediated for that mold.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? I know we have his report, and we've had the opportunity to review your reports prior to this meeting as part of the packet. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Before we move on, I want to the area of old business. I want to give an explanation of the guidelines we're going to be hearing for these claims today. We have several case or complaints that have been filed by, in this case, for individual claims against the concierge apartments. And we have it listed as old business and new business because some of these have been pending for some time. With regard tonight, I want to let both parties know, or all parties concerned, that the commissioners seated here today are very familiar with the evidence that's been submitted in the packets, as well as the allegations. They've read it thoroughly. They may have some questions. The way that's going to proceed is that the claimant, the individual claimant that we call up, will present their case first. If we have questions, but understand we don't want anything repeated. If it's in the packet, if we have questions of you, we may ask you questions. I want to also let know the respondent to know that if you do have questions of the respondent, you'll be doing it through this commission, so you won't question them directly. You'll be submitting your questions to us. We'll, in turn, if it's appropriate and we feel that it needs to be asked, we'll ask that individual to flesh out that information for you. After that is done, you'll present your case as the respondent. And the same thing will apply, is if the claimant, or the complainant rather, that filed the case after the concierge has presented their case, if you have individual questions that you'd like to ask of concierge's representatives, or including its attorneys, you may ask that, but you're going to do that through the commissioner and myself. And then I will determine if that has already been asked, so we don't get anything into any repetitive nature. Because I know that we have a backstop here tonight. We have unfortunately, a conflict at 7 o'clock with town council meeting. So we're going to try to get through it as efficiently as possible. But I want to assure everybody we've read everything in the packets, and we're familiar with it, intimately familiar with it. And so we will have questions if necessary, but that's the procedure that's going to apply. After both sides have presented their cases and all the questions have been asked, if any, we're going to briefly have a recess followed by an on the record deliberation of what our decision is going to be, or what we're going to be talking about and deliberating it, which may be followed by a motion from the commissioners, which we'll vote on. And if it passes, whatever the appropriate relief may be. Once that claim is concluded, there being time, we'll go on to the next claim if all parties are present, and then go from there. But understand, we do have to vacate this in advance of the 7 p.m. meeting. But I want to assure you, I know a lot of people have been patient in dealing with this, is we're going to keep this on a short leash to the extent that we have any of you that do not get your opportunity to have your claims adjudicated today. You will have an opportunity, we're going to do this within the next couple of weeks, because we're going to meet right afterwards and discuss with the parties available dates so we can get this back on the schedule, and hopefully something within the next couple of weeks. Well, that being the case, that's the procedure. I also want to explain to everybody to understand that we're not necessarily a rent control commission, but we're a fair rent commission. And that's just to give you some understanding of what that means. As a commission, in determining whether a rental charge or a proposed increase in a rental charge is so excessive, we give due regard to all circumstances such as to whether it's harsh and unconscionable. The commission will consider such of the following circumstances as are applicable to the type of accommodation, and I'm going to give you that in order. Number one, the rents charged for the same number of rooms and other housing accommodations in the same and in other areas of municipality. Again, these are factors for us as commissioners in evaluating the claims before us, whether they're appropriate and have merit. That's the first criteria. Second criteria, the sanitary conditions existing in the housing accommodations in question. Number three, the number of bathtubs or showers, flush waste closets, kitchen sinks, and lavatory basins available to the occupants thereof. Number four, services, furniture, furnishings, and equipment supplied therein. 5, the size and number of bedrooms contained therein. 6, repairs necessary to make such accommodations reasonably livable for the occupants accommodated therein. 7, the amount of taxes and overhead expenses thereof. 8, whether the accommodations are in compliance with the ordinances and general statutes of the state of Connecticut relating to health and safety. 9, the income of the petitioner and the availability of accommodations. 10, the availability of utilities. 11, damages done to the premises by the tenant caused by other than ordinary wear and tear. 12, the amount and frequency of increases in rental charges. And 13, whether and the extent to which the income from an increase in rental charges has been or will be reinvested in improvements to the accommodations. And again, this is statutory criteria, which also has a note there's nothing in that section or that statutory criteria precludes this commission from considering other relevant circumstances. So that being said, I do want to note that I've seen the documents that have been in connection with this hearing, and then it appears that that the notices have gone out and received, and all parties are present. I also have already gone into the procedure that this commission will recognize with regard to cross-examination, if you will, and those questions will be posed, if asked, will be posed to the commission, and the commission will then redirect the questions back to the opposing party. And the rule applies to both parties. So that being said, I want to turn to the called for the first case under the heading Old Business, case number 2022-04, Wong, Jennifer Wong, 100 Cold Spring Road, apartment A417. Is Wong present?
She is on the Zoom.
On via mute, Zoom.
She's on the screens.
Okay.
So really quick, so my name's Kelly Ayala. I'm the Fair Rent Commission caseworker here for the town. I'll be giving a brief synopsis of each of the cases before they share their information. So just really quick, as an intro, for Jen Wong, she's at 100 Cold Springs Road, apartment A417. The last rent provided was $6,458 as of 6/4. She has a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit. Ms. Wong filed a Fair Rent Commission application on 8/2/22 due to her rent increasing from $1,894 to $2,969. There were also concerns regarding inconsistent billing, which includes additional fees added to her rent, as well as mold in the unit and air conditioning not working properly. On 9/16/2021, Ms. Wong hired Sherwood Inspection Services to complete mold testing on her unit. This test confirmed the presence of mold in the bathroom, which the test is in your file. A mold remediation company was hired by concierge Paul Davis prior to Ms. Wong filing her Fair Rent Commission application. However, Ms. Wong reported that the mold continued to be visible in her unit. Ms. Wong appeared before the Commission on 9/6/2022, and the Commission determined that rent should be decreased to $1,700 monthly. However, on 11/14/2022, this decision was deemed null and void, as concierge made a civil complaint due to being unable to represent themselves at the Commission hearing on 9/6/22. However, it was determined that Ms. Wong should continue to pay $1,894 a month until the next Fair Rent Commission hearing, which would be today. Please refer to the minutes from 11/14/22 for further information. Since the last hearing, Sherwood Inspection Services conducted another mold test on Ms. Wong's apartment on 4/3/23. Sherwood tested the same areas that were previously tested and remediated in 2021. The report indicates that mold continues to be present in the unit in the same locations. Locations that tested positive include the bathroom, guest bathroom, and living room. Ms. Wong also reported on 4/18/23 that she had been in court as concierge was in the process of evicting her from the apartment. She reports that rent was paid 5 days late in December of 2022, and per her reports, concierge put her on a month-to-month lease. Pictures of Ms. Wong's rental fees for the past 3 months are attached. This includes January's rent of $5,236, February's rent of $6,100, and March's rent of $6,338. Ms. Wong provided screenshots of her rental statements and reports that the amount that she is charged per month fluctuates frequently, sometimes reportedly within the same month. Ms. Wong additionally reports that since the last fair rent hearing, she has continued to pay the amount of $1,894 monthly. Her certified checks are attached in the file. Correspondence with concierge, along with her mold tests, are also attached in her file. On 5/8/2023, the town of Rocky Hill placarded Ms. Wong's unit due to the high levels of mold reported in the living room, master bathroom, and guest bathroom. It was determined that this unit violated Section 15444 of the Town Code, Unfit Dwellings. A notice was provided to the property manager on this date. As of 5/22/23, Ms. Wong and those residing in her unit have been relocated under the Relocation Act until the unit meets the standards within the Town Code. Thank you.
Ms. Wong, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So again, I want to reiterate that the commission has received your submissions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Again, the commission has received your submissions throughout this case and leading up to this hearing. We've read it and we've gone through it. I know that if there's anything else that we feel that we need to question you about, I'm going to turn it over to the commissions now. If there's something that you feel that you need to add that's not otherwise in your packet or you haven't been questioned about, feel free to let us know. But if we may be able to get to it just from the questions alone, but let me, on that note, I'm going to ask the commission if anybody has any direct questions. Ms. Wong?
No, I don't.
No.
No.
I have a few questions. Ms. Wong, I just want to confirm that is it accurate that after the mold remediation test, there was your apartment was a notice or a placard was put on your apartment requiring you to vacate it?
Yes.
Okay. And did that occur on May 18th? Best recollection?
Okay.
Yeah, and how soon after that did you end up moving out of the apartment?
It was that Monday.
Okay.
I'm not sure what date that was.
The following Monday?
It was right after that Monday, yes.
Okay. And I understand that you had some complaints of mold that dated back to your original filing your complaint back in August 2022. I understand, obviously today it's almost 10 months later. There was a point in time that I think we took evidence at earlier hearings that concierge did go into your apartment and remediate and treat some of that mold. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
Okay. And and then at some point in time, did the mold come back in the same areas or other areas?
Yeah.
When did that mold come back? We lost her. Can we get Ms. Wong back on there?
Yes, she ended the call. We'll see if she comes back.
Okay.
There she is.
Okay. Ms. Wong, can you hear me? Still connecting. Let us know when you can hear us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go back on the record. I understand you got disconnected here. Just, again, just to do, my question was, I know that there were efforts by concierge to treat the mold, and that did occur at some point in the fall. I'm talking about the mold that's subject to this latest inspection report from April 2023. When did that mold first manifest itself?
So, when did you say it?
So, in other words, you had a mold complaint back in August 2022, correct?
Yep.
And at some time in the fall of 2022, based on earlier evidence we've taken from you as well as concierge, that mold was treated sometime in the fall of 2022, correct? Okay. And at that point, that mold went away, correct?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to find out now is the mold that is the subject of Sherwood's April 2023 inspection report. When did that mold first manifest itself? When did you first see that mold come back?
It came back a couple months after.
Was it in the same areas as before?
It was pretty much the same area as before.
It was in, so just to hear, make sure we heard you correctly. Was it in the same areas as before?
So it's pretty much the same area as well. Like the ceiling, we've done that. When they remediated the bathroom, it did not come back there.
Okay. And did it manifest how did it manifest itself in the bathroom in those areas? What did it look like?
Between the ceilings.
Can you repeat that?
The guest bathroom ceiling, the master bedroom ceiling, the hallway ceiling, the living room ceiling.
And it's and that
Also the closet where the air conditioner.
now when do you think that mold started to come back or show up?
There was a couple months after the remediation.
And when was the remediation?
It was in April.
You filed your complaint in August for the original mold. At some point, the mold was treated in the fall of 2022, correct?
Yeah.
So what I'm asking you is, just make sure they're not confusing you with the dates. When did the mold come back? When did you first start to see the mold come back? A month, if you could.
Hold on. Yeah, the morning. I don't know the exact month, I'm sorry. Not at the moment.
You said it was a couple of months after the remediation?
It was about a couple of months after.
Okay. Turn it to a different area of questioning is, I have read your packet. There was an indication that the concierge, because you had allegedly paid 5 days late on your rent in December 2022, that they moved you to a month-to-month lease. Do you know when they moved you to a month-to-month lease? Like, when did they communicate that to you?
I'm not, they didn't communicate with me if they put me on a month-to-month. They're kind of automatically went to month-to-month.
Okay. Was your understanding that you were in a month-to-month lease as of January 2023?
I was not. I was not, because I was supposed to send in and I was supposed to go to, they were to come to some type of agreement. And then afterwards, after the note was
Okay. Can we get some help on the audio on this with her? If
She's going
she just got
again.
disconnected, but something changed in the audio from the beginning of the hearing.
Oh, she's back on.
I don't, Ms. Wong, there's something going on with your audio that's changed from the beginning of the hearing. We heard you pretty clearly. Now you sound muffled.
I think she's listening.
Yeah.
And also has her hand over the microphone part.
So your hand, because you're listening with the your AirPods, you may be covering or muffling the microphone portion of it.
I'm just trying to hear you better.
Okay, that's perfect. That is perfect. So that was the issue. Okay, so my question, just to be clear with my question is, at some point, based on your complaint and your submissions, you indicated that because they claimed you're 5 days late in December 2022 in paying your rent, that they moved you to a month-to-month lease with new terms. Is that correct?
Right.
When did they communicate that to you?
They did not.
When, how did you know then?
So basically, when we went to court, because they sent us an eviction because we were 5 days late for rent, that's pretty much when we found out that we were month to month. Because they said we owed, it was $7,000. I'm not really sure the exact amount, but it was $7,000.
Okay, so was it your understanding that they took the position that when you moved to a month-to-month lease, you were no longer obligated to pay $1,894 a month, but you're actually supposed to pay something more?
I believe so.
Okay. We've read your packet, and I just wanted to confirm my understanding of what you submitted, that the 1894, that term of your rent changed at some point because they believed you're month to month because of a late payment. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. One other question I had is going back to the mold issue, this new mold issue that was the subject of the April 2023 inspection by Sherwood. Did you ever, when that first manifested itself, when it first showed itself up in your apartment, did you communicate any of that to Concierge or its management company?
The last testing that was done.
No, I'm not talking about the testing. I want to know about the mold when it first came up again. Did you ever communicate the mold, that mold was present in your apartment to Concierge? And if so, when?
For this time.
Yes.
Time that they came to do it. This last time. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, no. There's no mold for this. I don't know if there's mold or not for this,
No,
time.
okay. So we'll back this up. So in April 2023, Sherwood came and did an inspection of your apartment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that report, inspection report, is in the packet that's part of your claim, correct? Okay. And they were testing for mold and found mold. That's your understanding, correct?
Yes.
What I'm asking you is, did you ever communicate the existence of mold, that mold that was the subject of that April 2023 report? Did you ever communicate that to Concierge or its management company?
Yes.
When did you communicate it?
I'm not really sure the date.
Can you give me an approximate, like, month?
They want to know when I communicated to them about the mold. But April, no, April.
Sorry, did you able to?
I'm sorry, I'm not really sure the time, I mean, pretty much since the beginning, because the rug was supposed to be replaced and it was never replaced.
Okay.
So it was
What-
pretty much like an ongoing thing since the
right.
first test.
Ms. Wong, so maybe I'll ask it a different way. You said that after they treated the mold in this fall of 2022, at some point, a few months later, the mold came back, correct?
Yes, that was the time when they came in and they painted over the mold and they did a spray.
Yeah, and then you said a couple of months later, the mold came back, correct?
Objection.
Correct.
Okay, what I'm trying to find out here is, what I'm trying to find out here is, when that mold came back, did you ever make any claims or notices to Concierge or its management company about the mold coming back?
I do believe so, yes. I can't find the exact date, but I do believe I did.
Okay. Do you believe you did it contemporaneous when it occurred, or at some point later in the future?
Some point in the future.
Okay. Do you know at what point in the future you did? If you could approximate? Was it
Objection.
It's not a court. You'll get your chance to cross-examine. What I'm asking you is, when you said at some point in the future you notified Concierge, what I'm asking from you is, was it a matter of days later, weeks later, or months later that you communicated the return of the mold to Concierge, or,
It was
can you repeat that?
months later.
Okay. Do you know approximately how many months later you told?
Maybe a month or two.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. That's all the questions they have, but I want you to stay on the line because Concierge Counsel may have some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Evan Seaman. I'm a lawyer at Robinson & Cole. I'm joined by my colleagues Ryan Hoyler and Josh Coker this evening. And I just first want to explain that the reason for me objecting to two of the questions recently was not because we're...
Hold on, did we lose her? She's still on the line. I want to make sure she can hear them. Sorry.
She disconnected.
I want to make sure she can hear this. Just be a second. Wait to see if she gets back on, just so she can
Yep.
have an opportunity.
Here we go.
All right, Ms. Wong, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
She's on mute. There we go.
Hello?
Okay, yeah. I'm going to ask you, okay, if you could put it on mute, but what we're going to give you an opportunity to hear Concierge's counsel. They're in a part of the case that they may have some questions for you, but those will be directed to us, which I will then repeat to you. So in the meantime, if you could ask if you could stay connected and listen. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll start again. Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Evan Seaman. I'm a lawyer at Robinson & Cole. I'm here this evening on behalf of the landlord at Concierge Apartments, known as Century Hills Property Owner, LLC, and I'm joined by my colleagues from Robinson & Cole, Ryan Hoyler and Josh Coker. And I just have some kind of procedural housekeeping items that I'd like to address first that relate to all of the concierge proceedings this evening. And then my colleagues are going to get into the substance of Ms. Wong's case. So first, I wanted to clarify that the reason for my objections to my two objections to the line of questioning while Ms. Wong was attempting to make her case in chief was not because we're, quote, not in court, said by you, Mr. Chairman, as well as Town Manager Roy Carpentino as he was passing by me, but because in the administrative hearing guidelines that were read at the beginning of this meeting, there was no indication that that this commission is going to make the case for Ms. Wong. Mr. Chairman, you asked her many, many questions. She could have made the case herself, and she did not do so. You let leading questions, every single question. If you instructed complainants are to make their own cases, yes, members of the commission may have questions, and they should ask those questions freely, but you are trying to make the case for her, and that's not appropriate. That's number one. I'd like to raise that, and I hope it applies. I hope that this commission considers it in the future Fair Rent Commission proceedings involving my client. Second, we've submitted two letters earlier today, one requesting the recusal of one of your commissioners, Commissioner Bosky. I did not hear that addressed by this commission. Is the commission in receipt of my letter from earlier today?
Yes, we're in receipt of the letter. If you'd like to address it now, we can.
That would be great, thank you.
Okay. With press the side
You
button.
need help?
Okay.
Is it?
All right, well, we're going to turn it off.
Yeah, turn it off.
I
Sorry.
don't know, that's, okay. Can I just turn it
Yep, yep.
all the way down?
Oh,
That's volume down.
yeah,
Or you want to just turn the whole thing
Yeah.
off? Good idea. Power
Yep.
off.
yep. Do it again. Oh,
All right, power off. There we go.
perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay, thank you. I understand.
With regard to your paper submission with regard to a request for recusal based on bias or impartiality, before addressing that, ask for some direction and some background from our town attorney, Attorney Slater.
Sure. In terms of, you're all under an obligation as public officials to, in any instance in which you have an actual financial or a personal involvement in a matter, or in an instance in which you have made up your mind that you can't provide a fair hearing, you're in a duty to recuse yourself. The commission can't vote to say that someone should or should not recuse himself. So that letter that counsel for the respondent sent was delivered to, and it would be up to the commissioner to decide whether or not she wishes to step down. She could state on the record that she's not biased, if that's what she believes, or certainly she can recuse herself. You haven't reached the point of deliberations, nor have you, but that's something that anyone, if you don't speak, it's presumed that you've decided that you do not have a conflict. But that's essentially, it's not a decision for the commissioner, it's the decision of not only the person who's been asked to step down, but anyone else on the commission. It goes without saying if you proceed, you believe that you don't have a personal financial interest and you have not prejudged the issues or given the appearance to the general public that you have prejudged the issues. So that's really the consideration that you need to make when a request like this is made, and frankly, when it isn't even requested of you. It just goes without saying that you should evaluate whether or not you have some kind of a conflict that would prevent you, or bias that would prevent you from participating. And if I could, I'll just jump into, because the first objection, and this is a fact-finding body with lay persons. So the ability to ask questions, to understand, especially when you're dealing with lay witnesses, this is a situation where you do have the ability to inquire of a witness in your fact-finding aspects of your role as a fair rent commission. So that's my 2 cents.
Commissioner Boski? Anything to say?
Sure. I did receive the allegations, and I have read them. I do disagree with them. I do not have a personal interest, and I do believe that I can be impartial in all proceedings here forward.
Okay.
I'd like to note for the record that we maintain our objection for this proceeding, as well as your potential future participation in any future proceedings. And in the interest of time, I know we're on a tight schedule, I'll leave it at that. The letter is in the record, and just note our continuing objection to your participation this evening.
I think just as an abundance of caution, I should also let you know, and other commissioners know, that over 20 years ago, I used to work for Robinson & Cole, left on very good terms, but I will not let it affect my partiality whatsoever with regard to this claim or any other claims involving concierge or anything else, that Robinson & Cole has been contacted and to represent them.
Thank you. I submitted a second letter this morning too, and that is with regard to freedom of information requests that we have submitted to the town. Just to note, based on our belief, they were submitted in part to request public records of agency members and others in town involving concierge apartments, these matters and related matters. And we submitted them in part based on the belief that there may be ex parte communications happening, and that is based on not supposition, but factual evidence based on what we've submitted as part of our request for Commissioner Boski's recusal this evening. Her participation in the town council proceeding, as well as her posts on social media regarding Century Hills. So I'll leave it at that. We've yet to receive a response. The final thing before I turn it over to the substance of the proceeding involving Ms. Wong is some of her responses we just couldn't understand. We don't know what she said to some of her responses to your questions, Mr. Chairman, and there would be no way for us to.
Okay, if you can identify the questions, at least you heard my questions. So which questions that I asked that you couldn't hear an audible response? Sure.
So I didn't take them down word for word, but
this is the time that I have to remedy it.
Correct. This proceeding is being recorded, so I could identify those for you if you'd like, based on my review of this proceeding.
We're not going to go and delay this hearing any further. You have 3 attorneys representing your client here. You've identified an issue that can be corrected now. I would trust that one of the 3 of you would have taken down a question where you did not hear an audible response so that we can address it, because this is the time and place to do it.
They were the questions relating to the mold. I don't have them word for word, but your questions regarding when it first appeared, and then your questions about when it was remediated, and your questions about when she first noticed it, that course of questioning.
I could repeat the questions and ask her again if you want. I think I had heard my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, to those commissioners. I understood that the mold was remediated, the first incident of mold that was the subject of her August 2022 complaint was remediated sometime in the fall of 2022. And then within a few months after that, it reappeared. And that within a few months, a month or so, I think her testimony was within a month or so of it reappearing, that she notified concierge. That's what I heard.
Okay.
So, Ms. Wong?
Yeah.
If you're there,
Can you hear me?
yes. I just want to give an opportunity. There was some issues with respect to, if we can get Ms. Wong on video, if you could. There was a question asked by concierge counsel with regard to the timing of the remediation. And my understanding from your testimony, I know we had some issues with our ability to hear you, was that the mold was remediated from your testimony, was remediated in the fall of 2022. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct.
Sir, it's Miss Wong. Miss Wong. We cannot.
Yeah.
Miss Wong, we're asking you. And
Well, I am, right. Okay, all right. Let me answer, all right. Okay, then I'll answer correctly. All right. The remediation was not done 100%. There was still mold. The issue is, when we moved into that apartment, there was always black mold. There's always been black mold since we've been in that apartment, regardless if they're remediated or not.
Okay, what I'm asking though is just answer. I understand what you're saying. What I'm asking a very specific question. My specific question is, first, just answer this question. Was the mold, the first instance of mold that was the subject of your original complaint in August 2022, is it accurate that that mold was treated and remediated sometime in the fall of 2022? Yes or no?
It was not fully remediated.
Okay. But at some point, they came in and remediated the mold in the fall of 2022. And when I say they, I'm referring to concierge. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question is, after this, and I'm doing this for the benefit of concierges, because they weren't able to hear your response. At some point after that remediation effort by concierge in the fall of 2022, is it accurate that more mold came back, or the mold was and somehow came back or introduced in other areas at some point within a few months after that the remediation efforts in the fall of 2022?
Yes.
Okay. And then my question that they didn't hear your response to is, I had asked, after it came back a few months later, when, if at all, did you communicate the return of the mold to concierge or its management company?
It was about a month or 2 months.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's good. We're good on that question, and I'm now going to turn back to concierge counsel and ask them if they have any other questions before they go to their side of the case.
No, thank you. I'm going to now introduce my colleague to.
Okay. Ms. Wong?
Stay on, though, just.
You stay on, but I'd ask you if you just put yourself on mute, because concierge is now going to put on their case, okay? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Ryan Hoyler, also with Robinson & Cole, here on behalf of Century Hills property owner, the respondent. For the Commissioner's benefit, we have also put together a packet that consists of, in Ms. Wong's case, a copy of her lease, the renewal letter that she was sent in March of 2022 regarding her lease, her current ledger as of through the end of May showing her balance, the full activity log of Ms. Wong's apartment showing all the activity and repairs that have been done at the facility, along with a copy of a report by 4 Elements Restoration, a mold remediation company that went into the apartment and cleaned it up on May 31st. As well as a report here from Hayes Microbial Consulting performing the clearance test for Ms. Wong's apartment. My understanding, and we have here with us tonight both the maintenance manager for Century Hills, Roy, as well as someone from 4 Elements Restoration, Victor, who will speak briefly if that's okay, and they can kind of walk through what was done. But I'd like to, if it's okay, I have copies for the commission.
What are the dates of these reports?
The 4 Elements report, this job was completed on May 30th, I believe, and the microbial testing report is relatively recent, June 15th.
Okay. Hearing is today's June 20th. Why weren't any of these materials submitted?
So we did submit the the Four Elements restoration reports to the building department as part of our requests for extension of the, yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I have information on this, we submitted them as part of a request for an extension of time to comply with the notices of violation through town council.
I understand this, but in connection, and that's a separate matter that we don't have jurisdiction over. What I'm trying to address is, this commission has a pretty thick packet of reports. This thing's been lingering for quite some time, and various complaints. Why wasn't this submitted prior to this hearing in this forum so that these commissioners can review it in advance of this hearing or have it available to them? I mean, that looks fairly thick, almost an inch thick, just for this complaint. We have 3 other complaints after this, and this has been pending since August 2022. I know this has to deal with additional mold allegations, but I would think that as it was received, it would be submitted in this form. I understand you submitted with the building department. We're not the building department, nor do we have any jurisdiction over what the building department does. I mean, we'll take a look at it. I mean, questions, but we're not. I don't know that we're going to have an opportunity to review it as it should been. I mean, I would think that, again, this hearing's been we've had notice of this hearing since the end of, I think, the end of May, if not the beginning of June, and those reports were at least available to you to submit to this commission.
Well, I would reiterate that the microbial testing reports, while they're dated the 15th, I believe we just did receive them within the last day or so. And those are really the reports that matter, because they're the reports that show that the remediation was done correctly. So we wanted to wait till we had the clearance testing reports before we submitted an entire package.
Okay, when you say the remediation was done correctly, you mean this most recent remediation or the one that was back in the fall of 2022?
So this is so Four Elements went in May, within days after receiving the notice of violation from the city or the town, performed the remediation as part of the building department's request for a remediation plan. They also asked that we have an independent clearance test done. So after the remediation was performed by Four Elements, we had the microbial testing company come in and perform the clearance testing.
Okay, so this was to address the mold that was the subject of the Sherwood inspection report from April 2023.
That's correct.
Okay, I understand
Yes.
that.
That's correct.
I didn't know if you were disputing the existence of molds from before, from this past spring. So this is just more dealing with that. It's been remediated now.
Yes.
And it's all been taken care
So
of.
my understanding with Ms. Wong's apartment, she is in A417, is that the clearance testing for the living room came back still showing some elevated mold levels. So Four Elements was actually back in today to do further remediation on that, and we should have that clearance report hopefully within the next couple of days.
Have you gotten any written inspection report from I guess it would be the Rock Hill Community Development Office, approving it to be habitable?
We have not yet.
Okay.
We have just submitted the extension request to the building department, and we hope to be able to submit the final clearance tests with this new remediation by next week. My understanding is right now Ms. Wong is living in being put up in a hotel. If that's incorrect, she can speak to that, but that's my understanding right now.
Okay.
She's not living in the unit. There is no one living in the unit.
All right, we'll take copies if you could. Thank you.
I have additional copies as well if the building department would like them.
Thank you. Does here's the problem is that, do you know if it was an electronic copy or a mailed copy sent to Ms. Wong?
It was not. I don't believe that we have Ms. Wong's, we have not been communicating with Ms. Wong directly.
And, and again, this is, I understand the circumstance, but this also creates issues with fairness with regard to the hearing. Also, the ability to adjudicate this in a timely and efficient manner, this is going on some time. But we'll, okay, you go ahead with your presentation. I don't know if that's it on it. I mean, we'll look at this
Just one question. Was this noticed as a hybrid meeting to allow participants to participate remotely?
I'm not aware, I don't have the notice with me.
The agenda doesn't indicate that
Okay.
it's available by Zoom. I just want to make that clear.
Okay,
So we had printed out copies assuming that the witness would be here tonight.
okay,
So,
understood. We'll just see, we'll take a brief recess, 5 minutes.
happy.
We could?
Sure,
Just to give us an
certainly.
opportunity, the commission, to review this. Ms. Wong, I know you don't have a copy of this. I don't know what the notice requirements were in terms of the hybrid meeting, but we'll review this and, based on any questions or their presentation you may have, you can ask us to ask some questions, but I can't get around the fact that you're not here and you don't have a physical or electronic copy, but you'll certainly be provided with one. If I think it warrants it, a request for an adjournment, we will, but we're going to go have a brief recess to give the commission 5 minutes to review this, and then we're going to hear the presentation from opposing counsel, okay? All right, we're going to go off the record. All right, we're going to go back on the record. Right now, we're in, to speak to Mrs. Wong's complaint? No, well, that's my question. If you're a witness on, for one of the parties in the claim for Wong, then that's one thing, but we're not on the next claim yet. Yeah, we're trying our best. Okay. Okay, resume the meeting.
All right, just for the record, Ryan Hoyler from Robinson and Cole on behalf of Century Hills property owner, the respondent. I'd like to call up Victor from Four Elements, if I may. Is there a place I should stand to ask him questions on the record, or?
The one thing, as I wanted, I don't want to tell you how to run your case, but I'm cognizant of the time that we have, but I also want to know, again, if the issue is about whether this has been remediated now. That's not necessarily our concern at this point, because my understanding is from your side, as well as members of the town of Rocky Hill, that Ms. Wong is not in the apartment at this time.
She is currently not in the apartment. My understanding is she is still under a month-to-month lease. So I would assume that the commission would want to have some evidence of, what remediation has actually been done in the apartment.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to assume that it's been remediated, we're fine with that.
No, what my understanding, what guides this commission is with respect to a finding that there's a housing code violation, which I believe it's in the record that there was a housing code violation with regard to the levels of mold spores within the apartment. It was placarded requiring, as a matter of health, for her to move out of the apartment, and under the Relocation Act. And that's already happened. Anything that, if the commission was to take any action with regard to that, it would, it's a little bit out of our jurisdiction until such time as I believe that the housing code violation is deemed remedied in writing by the Community Development Office after an inspection. So what you may present to us is not really within our jurisdiction at this point, because I can't take any action on it, make a determination whether it's been remedied or not, because it's up to the Community Development Office to do an inspection and then issue a written notice that it's habitable. So I can't make that determination. Presenting evidence on that at this point in time is not appropriate, because we have no jurisdiction over that to make that determination one way or the other. We can take evidence eventually if the Community Development Office presents its findings after an inspection in writing, and if that issue creates a fair housing or fair rent commission issue, which I don't know that it will or it has, then we could address it, but it's probably, not to use the legal terms, but I don't think it's really ripe for adjudication right now, and plus it's not really within our jurisdiction to address it at this time.
In that case, we will move on. My understanding is this commission had the jurisdiction to consider the livability of the unit, and the remediation that has occurred would certainly impact livability of the unit. If this commission feels that that is outside its jurisdiction for the time being, I will move on.
Just to clarify, just so we know, I don't overstate it, is we understand that it's been placarded due to the Relocation Act. She had to be moved out because of a housing code violation. Until I see written notice that that has been remedied and it's been approved and inspected by the town of Rocky Hill, which issued it, I can't take any action on that, nor can any of the commissioners.
I don't believe we're asking you to take any action on the housing code violation or the building violation, the alleged building violation or alleged housing code violation. We're here tonight because of the Fair Rent Commission hearings, and my understanding is one of the complaints from Ms. Wong to the Fair Rent Commission is that there is mold in her apartment, or there has been mold in her apartment. I would assume that the remediation of that mold would be pertinent to the commission's understanding of both the livability of the unit as well as the status of what's happening in concierge overall.
It's certainly relevant. What I just to kind of put a finer point to it was that it was placarded as of a certain date. She moved out. So in my mind, that's the date we're looking at, and we're adjudicating anything that up until that date. Anything happens after she moves out, I don't know that she's under a rental obligation. I don't know where that stands. I don't believe this commission is going to take any action on that tonight. We're focusing on the events that led up to it being placarded and any other complaints that she may have that's present in her package. But anything from, I believe, May 23rd or May 18th, beyond that, until I get a written notice from the Community Development Office, or if you're challenging that and say that they're saying it's not livable and your people are saying it is, that's not before us tonight, because I can't take it.
Absolutely understand that. Just so the commission understands, my understanding is that Ms. Wong has been put up in temporary living accommodations in the hotel until this is cleaned up and the town has provided the clearance to allow her to move back in. So looking forward, she will be moving back in. I don't understand why the commission would be stopping their understanding of the conditions in the apartment at May 18th. But if that's the commission's position for this evening, then we'll move forward under that understanding.
If I could chime in. I think to add to what the chairman is saying, is this commission is not a code, this commission is not the code, it doesn't have authority to interpret and apply the code. So the people who did have made a determination that there's a violation. And the work that you've done might persuade those regulators that it's been resolved. This commission has the ability to say that to the extent any rent is to be paid, it has to be paid to the town until a public health and safety violation has been remedied. They're still not going to decide whether the merits of the housing code violation. So the information, it seems to be primarily focused on prior to that date. Then you can work with the regulators to remedy whatever the violation is. And then when that's been remedied, then if this commission were to order that all rents be paid to, and I don't know that any rents are being paid while she has been relocated, the commission would have jurisdiction to do that. But you just have to submit something from the regulators that say that the outstanding violation has been remedied. Does that make sense?
I understand we're not trying to deal with the alleged housing code violations here tonight. I think it goes to the reasonableness of how concierge acts in response to complaints and issues that are raised and the scope of the remediation that's done. That said, given the time that we have very little left, we have the report, you have the full report in front of you along with numerous pictures of the cleaned apartment. Hopefully that will be enough. I would like to cover a couple things real quickly. With regard to the month-to-month lease, as you will see under tab 1, that is the renewal letter that was issued in March of 2022. Pursuant to that renewal letter, if Ms. Wong did not renew with the lease terms that were provided, she would be put on a month-to-month lease at a rate of $2,482 a month. That was in March 2022. The reason she is on a month-to-month lease is because she did not sign the new lease. Therefore, the conditions of that letter kicked in, and she has been on a month-to-month lease for quite some time now. It also explains why her rent, as stated earlier, is not $6,000 per month or $7,000 per month. It is $2,482 per month, because she has been paying the prior amount, the $1,800 per month. An amount has been accruing every month of unpaid rent, and that is why the current ledger balance is up near around $7,000. She is not being charged $7,000 per month in rent. I just want to make that clear for the commission.
Understood.
I would like to ask a couple questions of Roy, the maintenance manager at the apartments, if that's okay. I think I will try to keep this very short so we can get at least this one kind of finished tonight, if that's okay for the commission.
And I could swear him in, and as you gentlemen were part of the early part of the hearing, Ms. Wong has already been sworn in, so her statements to do that. And my suggestion is if you could just ask, I know it's a little awkward, but if you ask the questions at the mic and take a step back, and then he can answer, that'd probably be the best way to go.
Absolutely.
Would you raise your right hand?
Yep.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Roy Fry, 200 Cold Spring Road, apartment 406.
And do you swear all the information you give tonight will be the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
This is a little awkward, but it's okay. Roy, what's your position at Concierge Apartments?
I'm the maintenance coordinator, maintenance manager.
What does that position entail? What do you have to do on a day-to-day basis, just generally?
Generally? I run the whole maintenance department, which includes move-ins, move-outs, grounds, work orders, assignment of work orders, computer programming, dealing with vendors, dealing with leasing staff, the indoor pool, the outdoor pool, the spa, basically everything there.
And my understanding.
No.
Oh, sorry, okay. My understanding is you live at Concierge Apartments, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I have a couple specific questions I want to get into because I think they cover aspects of all of the claims, and I think it would be nice to try to get this out of the way. How does the water heating work? Are there individual water heating units for the buildings?
So no, there are 8 buildings, 100 and 200 are shared boiler, a 1 million, 2 million boiler, BTU, outdoor gas. C building has a 1 million, and then D and E each have 2 500,000s in each one, all gas. So the residents don't pay for the gas there, they pay for water, but they don't pay for hot water.
With regards to specifically the building that Ms. Wong's in at A417, how is that building constructed? Is it like a concrete building? Is it wood with drywall insulation?
No, it's concrete, and then in the hallways, the hallways is, from what I've seen, it's been double firewall with insulation with metal studs. So there's really no wood within these buildings, maybe like on the trim and stuff.
When did you start at your position here at Concierge?
October 14th, 2022.
Okay. In your time, what have you done, or Concierge has done generally, to improve the common areas in the building?
Well, I've put a couple more people on. We have like 2 porters there, and then I made sure when we hired a new cleaning vendor that they put a porter out there to clean the grounds on a daily basis. The majority of the leaks that have been fixed from the ceilings have been repaired. I mean, we just take care of the grounds on a daily basis. With the chutes I even go through on Saturday nights at 11 p.m. and double check them, make sure the chutes are clear for garbage. Sometimes people put things down there like a full carpet, which down a chute, and you have to try to get that out, and things happen there. I mean, we're on it a lot more than I think. I don't know. We're constantly working 24/7, to be quite honest with you, since I've been there.
And you try to address the complaints that arise from residents as soon as you can, right?
Yeah, so we have we work through Entrada, and we have mobile apps. So as soon as the work order comes in, we're alerted right away. So, and then sometimes I'll be checking, being I live on site, I'll be checking them throughout the night now and see, if anything high priority. Plus we have an answering service, so anything that's emergency comes through, we get to it as soon as possible.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just thinking of something. With regards to Ms. Wong's unit in A417, have you been in to address some of the complaints that she's raised over the past, since you've been there in October?
Regarding her unit, like when the newest report came out of the violation for her unit, we dispatched 4 Elements right away. As soon as it came in, basically that day, I gave Victor a call from 4 Elements to start working on these units for the remediation process after the reports I received from the company that Town of Rocky Hill hired. And I personally haven't been in there often because I don't get too many work orders unless they're more involved in the air conditioning or plumbing side that needs more of my expertise. But from what I've seen, I think we were in there once for the air conditioning unit on one of the reports I've seen. And we went there and recharged the unit and pulled out the evaporator coil filter because it was dirty. And then she had a couple of complaints in her bedroom leaking, but it actually was a child upstairs playing with water in the bedroom, which leaked through the concrete slab. But that's basically what I've seen.
Okay.
For that unit.
And just one last question. You mentioned you have plumbing experience. Are you a certified plumber?
In the state of New York, I'm a licensed plumber for 35 years.
That's it. Thank you, Roy.
Okay.
Again, given the interest of time, you have the reports in front of you. I've explained how the month-to-month works, how that started, where it began, what her current rent is, which is the $24.48, and how $24.82. I apologize, and how she has accrued the current balance she has based on paying the former rent of the $1,800 a month. Again, you have the report from the remediation people. Within here is also a copy of the full ledger showing everything through the end of May, along with the full activity report. I believe you may have the ledger as part of the record in this already, and you probably have portions of the activity report. So given that, what's that? I mean, if we have 2 minutes here, I'd love to have Victor come up and just explain what he did as part of the mold remediation, but if you really believe it's out of the scope.
I think it's probably premature at this time, because I don't think we're going to be addressing the reasonableness of the current ongoing remediation efforts by Concierge.
Okay.
But I applaud the efforts, though, in terms of trying to address these complaints.
In that case, I think we rest for Wong right now.
Okay. Ms. Wong, can you hear me? I know you're on mute, so I'll give you a chance to get off mute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Ms. Wong, do you have any questions?
Actually, I do. Is there any way that you could swear my partner in again? I mean, he was already sworn in the last meeting.
Yeah, as long as you've both been sworn in, so
Yes.
we don't need to swear you in again. He understands he's sworn in.
All right.
Could you just state your name for the record? If you could just state your name for the record, please.
Can you hear him?
No.
Hello?
Yes, can you state your name for
Yeah.
the record?
Yeah, my name is Domingo Mota Taveras.
Okay. Okay. If you have any questions, and this is not something to rehash what your prior cases is, but if you have questions you want to ask of Concierge, if you can ask them through us, we'll in turn ask the questions of Concierge.
Okay, yeah, no, my question is, I just finished winning a case against them in housing court where the judge ruled in my favor, and it had to do with them trying to evict us due to us going into these Fair Rent Commission hearings. Now, this is the third lawyer that they have, and my question is, why are they still talking about the current rent being 24, whatever it is they're saying, when the judge pretty much, vacated whatever balance they're talking about that we owe, and why is he bringing this back up? And last time, the previous attorney, everybody already agreed that the rent was going to stay at 1895 or 75, whatever it is. So that is my question. I mean, did he not get the memo of that judgment? It just came out last week.
Okay. If
that was in Brayton Court.
Okay. We heard your question. I think council has heard your question. I don't need to necessarily repeat it, but if you could just address, I understand the basis for your 2448 rent is that it's month to month as of March 2022.
Correct.
I took my notes, paid attention to that. I understand the basis for that. He has brought up the issue of a housing court adjudication, which your firm may have participated in, trying to address that, if at all. No.
I don't believe we were counsel for the housing court adjudication, but I have seen the decision, and I would also be happy to provide it to the commission if they would like. But it was a hearing for eviction. The judge decided and determined in his ruling that eviction was not proper in this circumstance, but the judge did not rule on the amount of rent owed. I would like to note that within the judge's ruling, they specifically state that the conditions raised did not rise to the level of uninhabitability. But again, it's my understanding that the judicial decision did not touch the rental amount.
Okay. You heard that? Sir, did you hear that?
Right, because it was time. Yeah, I heard that. Because of the timing, that's why the judge did not say the unit was inhabitable. But now the unit is inhabitable according to the building and zoning at Rocky Hill, right? That's why it's
Yeah, and there, I understand both sides of it, and I think the commissioners do as well. There's different issues at play as well as a different forum. Aside from that, I think unless you have any other questions, we're going to close the evidence portion of the hearing. And I would like, if with the indulgence, that we should be able to wrap this up and go to the deliberations.
There's just one more point we'd like to make, if that's okay, and
The rest of it is, okay.
If Roy could come back up real quickly, I have one last question for him, if that's okay.
Yeah, just one. We have to get the delivery. We have a hard stop here.
Understood. Roy, my understanding is that Ms. Wong has been provided a rental abatement for the period of time when she's been out of the apartment. Is that your understanding as well?
I don't work up in leasing, but I'm pretty sure that that was stated to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So hearing nothing else, we're going to close this portion of the meeting with regard to taking on evidence. We're going to turn, if we could, now to deliberations. You members of both sides will actively hear us, and we're going to try to address this. We put a lot of time and effort into this case that's been pending since this past August, almost a year now. So with that said, I think there's several issues at play here. I think you do have a violation which is set forth in the record. I think we've heard sufficient evidence of that violation, housing code violation, with respect to the presence of mold. I don't think that's disputed, and I find in favor, in my opinion, I think the inspection report is compelling, as well as the evidence we've seen throughout the course of the year, but more particularly like what's happened this past April 2023. I believe and sure that I would like to hear your thoughts, but my thoughts are that I think that would warrant the presence of this mold, which caused the property to be placarded and the tenant to move out, essentially warrants a retroactive reduction of rent from the date of the violation of the housing code, which we believe, I think it was May 18th, 2023. And to a date, we think the condition first manifested itself based on the information provided to us today. I know we don't have exact dates, and that makes it a little bit difficult. I know that at some point in the middle of fall of 2022, there were efforts by concierge to address the first mold complaint. Based on the testimony we received today, which I don't think has been controverted, is that or contested, that the mold reappeared several months later. So maybe that would take it into January 2023, as best I can. Because we're not. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know the dates, but I'm going based on the testimony, and I know that concierge would be due notice of that. And Ms. Wong has testified in this hearing that within a month or so after that, mold reappearing, the mold conditions reappearing, is she communicated to concierge about that. So they would have to have notice of that for it to be appropriate. So my thought, I think that a rent reduction, it would be appropriate. The amount, I don't know. From the date of the violation being May 18th, 2023, retroactively to the date we think the condition, based on the testimony evidence presented, that the condition first manifested itself or first presented itself, and when that, and the total amount we have to keep in mind here is because the tenant no longer lives in the apartment because of the type of housing code violation here. So essentially, I would look at the total amount, if this commission feels it's appropriate, the total amount of the reduction should count as a credit towards any future rent due. Or in the case, we don't know ultimately what Ms. Wong's going to do and her partner. But if they decide to come back to Century Hills, or I'm sorry, concierge, the credit can be applied towards future rent. But in the case if Ms. Wong, as is her right, does not decide to come back to the apartment, the question comes is what becomes of that credit if one's warranted. So I would propose that if a reduction is of the rent, the monthly rent, retroactively applied from the date of the violation, the housing code, to when the condition first manifested itself. If that credit should go towards future rent, or in the case of the tenant either moves out before the full amount of the credit is used up, or decides not to move in after this is remediated, I think that in that case, the landlord would be ordered to cut a check to the tenant for any remaining credit unused. Okay, so, I mean, those are my thoughts with regard to the mall. I definitely think we have a housing code violation that's undisputed. That's my point. And our ability as a commission can address it with what was the fair rent, what do we think it's appropriate for the rent to be paid during the time that condition had manifested itself and that tenant had to live under those conditions. So, again, I see it as the notice of violation was on May 18th, that the mold levels were there as early as April 2nd, 2023, and based on the testimony of Ms. Wong, it reasonably could be said that it was there in January or February of 2023. So based on those are the parameters, I think a rent reduction would be in order. Please tell me your thoughts or if you disagree. Otherwise, if this commission does agree that a reduction is warranted, maybe I can entertain a motion, and then we could take it there, get a little bit more specific on how we want to address that.
Sounds reasonable.
Is there a motion? So, in other words, you're saying sounds reasonable. Is that a motion that a reduction in rent is warranted from the date of the violation of the housing code, being May 18th, 2023, to the date and time that the condition first manifested itself? Is that what your motion is?
Yes, that's.
Okay.
I'd second it.
Okay.
Yep.
Discussion?
I have discussion. I'm questioning the amount, because according to our records, she has paid the $1,894 that we had come to agree upon. And we're saying January, February, March, April, May. Is that what you're thinking? In June? 6 months? So I'm confused about the reduction part. She's paying $1,894 a month, but according to the evidence presented, the month-to-month basis was $2,482.
Okay, excellent. I see your point.
So what are we reducing here?
Okay.
Because $1,894 is actually a reduction from the $2,482 if she hasn't signed the lease.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. That was another issue that I had flagged during the time that we were hearing evidence. Maybe that's something we should take in reverse order with regard to what was the rent that was actually due. I know there's a dispute. We've heard testimony with regard to the concierge's point of view. It was $2,448 as of a month-to-month lease that went in effect in March 2022. That was a month-to-month lease. But I must make note of this, is we've heard evidence in this case when both parties have been present as recently as November 14th, 2022, at which time another counsel that was representing Concierge Apartments, attorney Larry Rosenthal, was present. And during that time, there was a dispute as to what was owed and what the rent, and as we went to address it, because this hearing, Ms. Wong and Concierge has gone over for some time, and that was our last hearing. And we had minutes approved here today that directly address this, and that's concerning for me, because as stated in the minutes, minutes were approved, and Attorney Rosenthal, who was representing Concierge, and Concierge had a representative present in addition to that, at that time, as stated in the minutes, and I was present as well as the rest of the commissions were present for it, that Attorney Rosenthal had asked for guidance on the rental payment amount going forward. And because that was in dispute, the commission and Attorney Rosenthal, as attorney for Concierge, had agreed that the rent would go back to $1,894 until the next meeting of the Fair Rent Commission, which is today. So that was an agreement that was on the record and was formed as also as an order of this commission that the rent was to be $1,894. So that I find it troubling troubling that that agreement was on the record as of November 2022, and that less than a month later, from what I can tell from the testimony I've heard from both sides, that at a certain point in time, that they alleged the rent was much higher at a different rate. And I've seen evidence by Ms. Wong presented it, that her claim is that they changed her to a month-to-month lease, and we've seen the rental charges, and they raised it above while she continued to pay the $1,894, which was an agreement and an order, on stipulated agreement on the record. I hear from counsel today, who wasn't present necessarily at that meeting, but it's still chargeable to their client, is that their reliance on a different rent amount was based on a March 2022 month-to-month lease. Irrespective of that, I don't find any weight in that. I find out the fact that there was an agreement, a stipulated agreement on the record, that memorialized in an order of this commission, that it was $1,894. I find that troubling that concierge went against that. So I believe that that's the rent that, to Commissioner Bosky's point, that's the rent we're looking off of for a reduction. I think that is clear as day, black and white, that was Ms. Wong's rental obligations until we saw otherwise when this commission was to meet again, which is unfortunately June 2023. So $1,894 is the bar that I think that she was to pay no more obligation. I've seen evidence in the record that indicate that she paid the $1,894. We have the checks, the proofs of it. I don't think that's disputed. So to Commissioner Bosky's point, $1,894. So if we're looking at a reduction, the reduction should be based off of the $1,894. That's my opinion. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, I would suggest something, Mr. Chair, which would be, your standard is harsh, and the standard of what is harsh and unconscionable under all those factors. Rather than view it as, the math can be done after, but rather than view how much it should be reduced, your commission could set a number of what you think the appropriate rent should be under those
Absolutely.
conditions.
I agree with you. I just don't think that the number will ever be higher than $1,894. And I think the reduction should come off of $1,894, not off of $2,400 or $3,000 or $7,000, whatever the penalties. There was an agreement for $1,894. It was memorialized as an order of this commission, and it was a stipulated agreement. So going back to our original motion, which this commission has determined that a reduction is warranted, it would be off of the $1,894 obligation. So the question I would have is, we know the date of violation is May 18th, 2023. I think we've heard some testimony indicate that it first manifested itself in around January or February 2023. If you think otherwise, that would be my opinion. So any reduction should be retroactive, in my opinion, between May 18th, 2023, back to January, February. I'll leave that for discussion with you. Just then, it's determined also is what we think it warrants an appropriate reduction to be living in an apartment under those conditions during that time. So if you have your thoughts, I'd open to listening to them. What's your thoughts? Or if not, I'd entertain a motion.
Well, I'm thinking back to the meetings before November, the August ones, where we had reduced the rent to $1,700.
There was a notice issue, so that wasn't,
Okay,
that was
okay.
addressed, so. Okay, so do anybody have a motion?
We have a
with
motion
regard
on
to
the table.
Motion on the table with regard to that there is a reduction warranted.
Correct.
Without stating the amount of the
Correct.
reduction. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, okay. So there will be a reduction. Do we agree that on the date of the reduction, from May 18th until, retroactively until what time?
January.
Fair motion?
Do you want me to make them?
Yeah, go ahead.
January, go ahead.
Joe? Or
Make a motion that we move it back to a couple of months there.
to what month?
Was it January?
January 2023? Okay, so just to be clear on the motion on the record, for us, is there, the motion is a retroactive reduction from May 18th, 2023 to January 1st, 2023. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, that's this. We've set the date. What is the amount of the reduction do you think is warranted? Understanding that it was $18.94 for the rent obligation, under those conditions, what do you believe that the amount of the monthly reduction? We can do the calculations later.
What did we think about two?
It's up to you. Mold.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a serious, it's not, this isn't leaking pipes. I mean, that's my concern. This is a real issue. This is a health issue that warranted somebody moving out. That's my concern. We're here to protect the citizens and residents of Rocky Hill. And this is not something that I find appropriate.
What, 25%?
Hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know, yeah.
Well, we're talking about 5 months, so.
5 months?
January, April, May. 5 months,
4.5, yeah.
yeah.
You gotta go.
What's? Okay. You have to speak into the microphone as you talk. Lean forward as you could speak. Okay, so you were talking about what reduction do you want to as a monthly basis? Do you think it's appropriate in this case?
We were talking about maybe 500.
500 per month? Okay.
Times 4.5 months.
Okay. Do you want to make that a motion?
I make a motion that we reduce it by $500, start from January.
To May 18th, 2023?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is retroactive reduction in rent, $500 per month off the $18.94, to be retroactively applied from May 18th, 2023, back to January 1st, 2023. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so the moving party was Commissioner Yo, and Commissioner Finnegan seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, and again, as part of that, I just want to make sure as additional motion is that I want to make clear, because we do not know what these tenants' intentions are, that the total amount, I do want to entertain a motion if we can get the total amount of the reduction that can be calculated easily. Is that count as a credit towards any future rent obligations should Ms. Wong and her partner move back into this apartment? And that'll count towards future rent. But if she chooses not to, or if she chooses to move back and leaves prior to the full amount of the credit being applied, I would like to make an allowance for that requirement that the landlord be required to cut a check within 30 days of notice that she will not be continuing in her lease, to cut a check to Ms. Wong for any remaining credit that was unused. So with that, I mean, can I entertain a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that the rent reduction is served as a credit for future rent. If the tenant does not return, to a check to be made to the tenant within 30 days to the Director of Finance in Rocky Hill.
Okay, care of the Director of Finance?
Yep, care of
Okay.
Director of Finance in Rocky Hill.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second it.
Okay, got a second, Commissioner Yo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Okay. There's one last issue, at least in my part, that I think that needs to be addressed. Is, again, I'm very uncomfortable with the idea, notion that there was an order, stipulated agreement and order by this commission back on November 14th, 2022, where the rent was set at $18.94 per month. It appears from, it's undisputed from both sides, that that wasn't what was being asserted or charged to Mrs. Wong, or Ms. Wong rather. I find that to be quite an issue, to be ignoring or whether it's willful or negligent, an order of this commission. And in those instances, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Attorney is for the town, Attorney Slater, that I think in those conditions is where there's an individual, in this case the landlord, has violated an order of this commission. A fine is to be levied, or can be levied if appropriate, up to $100 per day per offense. So in that case, my understanding is from the evidence of the record is that the assertion of the rent, and I don't know that I'd hold necessarily concierge back retroactively to March 2022, because there was an agreement on the record in November 2022 and a stipulated order, an agreement that it was going to be 1894. That I think that the moment that it appears from the record that concierge started to assert a rent that was inconsistent with that order and that number, that is a finable violation. And again, the fine is up to $100 per day per offense. I find it to be one offense in terms of, well, a continuing offense where there is assertion all the way up until Ms. Wong moved out of the apartment in, I think by May 18th or May 23rd of 2023, which I think we can get that information from the town or through the record. But I find that, in my opinion, that violation where they're asserting a rent amount inconsistent with an order and a stipulated agreement of this commission to be a violation that warrants a fine up to $100 per day. That's my thoughts on that issue. I think that definitely needs to be addressed. I think when we have orders from this commission, they need to be taken seriously. And I think particularly if it's a stipulated agreement and order of this commission.
Specifically, just for the benefit of the commission, that statute is 7148F, and what it says is that any person who violates any order of rent reduction or rent suspension by demanding, accepting, or receiving an amount in excess thereof while such order remains in effect and no appeal is pending, or violates any other provisions of, and I won't rattle off those statutes, or refuses to obey any subpoena, shall be fined not less than $25 nor more than $100 for each offense. If such offense continues for more than 5 days, it shall constitute a new offense for each day it continues to exist thereafter.
Okay. So I find this a continuing repeatable offense. For a fine that would warrant up to $100. It's to the range, I guess, per statute is $25 to $100 per day. I believe I think it's reasonable based on the record that I've heard, the testimony that we received, that assertion of that higher rent amount took place as early as perhaps January 1st, 2023. I know that there was an assertion that the rent may or may not have been late in December. Regardless, there was an order of this commission. So I think that offense or violation was continuing that should run probably from at least January 1st, 2023 until the date Ms. Wong moved out. And in that case, if there is a fine, any fine that would be levied against the landlord in this case should be payable to the finance director of the town of Rocky Hill. Until at such time as the issue is remedied here, it's the assertion, I think the cap is going to be when Ms. Wong moved out. And I think that would be warranted here. Again, if you have any other thoughts, otherwise I'd entertain a motion as the amount, if appropriate, of a fine, and whether and how long, when it started for as a continuing violation. Those are my thoughts.
I think it started January 1st to May 18th, or when she moved out after that.
I'd agree. Okay.
So we're about 5 months.
Yeah. And what do you think our range of fines appropriate? I mean, this was on the record. This is a violation that I just find it troubling. I just don't think it's being taken seriously, or I don't know if it's intentional or it's just something that is something that's just mismanagement. I don't, but I mean, these are serious issues. They need to be addressed. And, you know, people put the time into this, including this commission. It needs to be taken seriously. So I think I agree with Commissioner Bosky in terms of the date starting January 1st, 2023. I'd like to hear an amount you think would be appropriate per day.
What are your thoughts?
You talk to the mic. You got talking to the mic.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea?
You too.
Me too, me too. I do agree there needs to be an amount.
I think it also needs to address what has taken place, and also needs to dissuade people or parties that don't take this commission's order seriously.
Do you have an idea, Joe?
You want to say between the low and the high? The high was 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the 100.
Yeah, that's,
I think I agree as well.
5 months,
Okay.
that's
agree
about-
with that, $100.
Okay, so do I hear a motion?
We'll make a motion.
Okay. Commissioner Finnegan, what's your motion?
We go with the $100 a day
Okay.
for the 5 months.
For starting, so just to be clear on the record and state this motion for the record, is that your motion is to assess a fine of $100 per day beginning on January 1st, 2023, up and until the time that Ms. Wong moved out, which I believe would have been May 18th. We'll say May 18th, 2023, because that's when, or soon thereafterwards, May 18th. Okay, so it'll be $100 per day for the number of days in between January 1st, 2023 and May 18th, 2023. And that fine is to be payable within 30 days to the finance director of the town of Rock Hill. Okay, is that a friendly amendment?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so that being the motion, do I hear a second?
I second.
Commissioner Yo, seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. At this time, we have exceeded our time and probably patience of our town council, who have a meeting, and they were gracious enough to give us the opportunity to wrap up a matter that had been pending before this commission for almost 10 months. So I appreciate everybody's patience in that regard, but we also have 3 other complaints on the agenda that have also been pending here. So before we move to conclude this hearing, because we have no choice, we have to give up the room, I would like to direct the parties that are on the remaining 3 complaints that are here, including counsel for concierge, to come up with dates in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we're going to make every effort to come right back here. We're not going to kick it out a month. We're going to get it to address your dates. If we can put it, make sure everybody's on the same page with dates, we'll try to get it resolved. We'll have to do it off the record. So I'm going to ask and direct counsel and the parties if we can meet out in the hallway or the back of the room, so that town council can come in, conduct business, and get together on some dates. We'll circulate those dates, get them locked in, and address this in short order. Okay? Do I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Okay, to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Hearing's adjourned.
What can I help you? Carrie?
Oh,